Hello, Michelle. How you doing?
Great. How are you doing?
Real good.
Wonderful. Okay, so I have a quick question. It appears that Russ Feingold is positioning himself for a rematch against you, Senator. What do you think of that?
Well, I think no matter who I face, I'll be running against a Democrat, and as Senator Chuck Schumer said, Democrats are the party of government. And so I'll just be asking the voters of Wisconsin, I mean, do you really want to send somebody to Washington, D.C. that is dedicated to growing this very dysfunctional, very broken, very inefficient, very ineffective place? Or do you want to send somebody like myself who's a citizen legislator, somebody who comes from the private sector, understands that it is in the private sector where long-lasting, self-sustaining, good-paying jobs are really created? No matter who I face, it'll be pretty much that difference between two candidates. And in the case of Russ Feingold, it'll be a citizen legislator against a career politician as well.
Senator, but some people say that this would be the biggest showdown of 2016. Do you think it's interesting people see it that way?
Well, it's going to be, I'm sure, a hotly contested race. Democrats are going to be targeting me. I think that's pretty obvious. But, I'm not overly worried about it. I basically made two promises to the voters of Wisconsin. I said, I'll always tell you the truth, as to the best of my ability. I think I've done a pretty good job. I've been the messenger sometimes with, the reality that's not particularly pleasant, but we have to face realities. We have to admit we have problems if we're going to solve them. And I also said I'd never vote or conduct myself with my reelection in mind. I mean, I came here to try and solve problems. It's a pretty frustrating place. I think the way you solve these long-term problems is with really strengthened communities, with individual liberty and freedom, and a limited federal government, limited to things that the federal government should do, like national defense, securing our borders. Those are things I'm trying to work on.
Sure. I was going to say frustrating place. Even with Senator McConnell's standalone bill, do you anticipate a Homeland Security shutdown? And if so, are you concerned about safety over places like the Mall of America, where we've recently even had some terrorist threats?
Yeah, one thing I have to emphasize is I want to see the Department of Homeland Security fully funded. All of their legal and essential activities, every Republican does. We want to fund the Department of Homeland Security. It's President Obama that really introduced the immigration debate into this process, and the Senate Democrats that have blocked now 4 times even bringing an appropriation bill that would fund the Homeland Security Department to the floor of the Senate for debate, for votes, for amendments. I mean, that's actually how you might be able to find some common ground, some compromise, so we can fund the department. So, I really do believe that every member of Congress, Democrat, Republican, wants to fund the department. That's an area of agreement. Where the area of disagreement is President Obama's executive action, which now have been ruled unlawful by one court. A really easy fix here is if President Obama just acknowledged that court ruling and just said, okay, we're not going to implement my executive actions till after the start of the next fiscal year. We'll wait for the courts to decide on the constitutionality, the legality of my actions. Let's fund the department. Let's keep this nation safe. If President Obama did that, we could get this department funded within a couple days, I'm quite sure. So I wish he would do that. I hope he does that. We're not counting on it, which is why Leader McConnell is trying to find some other path for getting some kind of funding bill on the floor of the Senate, because right now Senate Democrats are blocking any bill.
Yeah. Speaking of President Obama, what are your thoughts on him vetoing the Keystone pipeline? Oh,
it's very unfortunate. For so many different reasons. If you're an environmentalist, and I think I am, I think every American is, if you're concerned about CO2 emissions, the State Department's own report said that this is the least CO2 emitting method of transporting that oil. It's an efficient method of transporting oil. It will create good-paying construction jobs, and one of the criticisms of the pipeline is long-term. People are claiming it'll only produce 35 to 50 long-term jobs. Well, from my standpoint, that just proves the case of how efficient the pipeline is. And the other aspect of the pipeline is it's one of those measures that keeps downward pricing pressure on oil. That's a good thing. If we're going to manufacture, if we're going to have a strong economy, cheap power is better than expensive power, so we should have policies that promote cheap energy rather than artificially drive up the cost of power. So it's just unfortunate. The Keystone XL pipeline, the construction of that makes so much sense. That oil will be used, by the way, and what I'm afraid is Canada will produce or build a pipeline out to the West Coast, ship that oil over to China, where it will be used and burned in a far less environmentally friendly way than if we utilize it here in America. Goodbye, Michelle. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much. I got my questions in. Thank you, sir.
Okay, take care.